vote for at the next election, which means it's all to play for in a year's time. Are Labour celebrating victory too soon? I'll be giving my unapologetic verdict shortly. In the big story, an explosive new book from Harry and Meghan's favourite journalist looks set to cause more chaos for King Charles. We'll get reaction from fearless royal commentator Lady Colin Campbell. And Doctor Who goes woke. Take a listen.
He as a pronoun.
True. Yes. Sorry. Good point. Are you he or she or they?
Yeah, let's ask the aliens their pronouns. We'll get reaction from one of the stars of last night's 60th anniversary episode. And as an extraordinary GBNews civil war breaks out between two of its biggest stars, Richard Tice and Lee Anderson, is a vote for Reform UK a vote for Keir Starmer? I'll be asking one of the party's most high-profile supporters, Anne Widdecombe. Tice versus Anderson, whose side are you on? 2 hours of big opinion, big debate and big entertainment. My big opinion is on the way. It's not for the faint-hearted. First, the news headlines and Aaron Armstrong.
Yeah, very good evening to you. Aaron Armstrong here in the GB newsroom. Thousands of people lining the streets have cheered as a convoy carrying the third group of hostages released by Hamas arrived in Israel. The International Red Cross says 17 captives made the journey from Gaza. Meanwhile, Israel's prison service has confirmed the release of 39 Palestinian prisoners in exchange. It's the third of a 4-day pause in fighting. In total, the two sides have agreed to swap 50 Israeli hostages for 150 jailed Palestinians. A 4-year-old Israeli-American girl was amongst those released earlier. The US President Joe Biden has welcomed the news and says he hopes the truce will be extended.
So I'm hopeful this is not the end. It's going to continue. But we don't know. And but I get a sense that all the players in the region, even the neighbors who aren't and have been directly involved now, are looking for a way to end this so the hostages are all released and Hamas is completely, how can I say it, no longer in control of any portion of Gaza.
Well, meanwhile, Israel's Prime Minister has told Joe Biden in a phone call that their operations in Gaza will return with full force as soon as the truce is over. Benjamin Netanyahu has also been visiting his soldiers inside northern Gaza. He was given security updates and visited one of the tunnels discovered by his troops. The Prime Minister said this: "We have 3 goals for this war. Eliminate Hamas, return all our abductees and ensure Gaza does not become a threat to the state of Israel again." A readout of the White House phone call with Joe Biden says that they'll continue working to secure the release of all hostages. A man's been arrested on suspicion of a racially aggravated public order offence in London as tens of thousands marched against anti-Semitism. Police say he was heard shouting at crowds towards the end of the day. It was the second of 2 arrests. Earlier, the founder of the English Defence League, Tommy Robinson, was detained after he tried to join the march. It comes amid concern over a steep rise in hate crime in the UK, sparked by the conflict in Gaza. Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who was at the march, described anti-Semitism as a virus which lurks beneath the floorboard of Western civilization.
What we're all doing here, and the only thing we're really doing, is showing solidarity with Jewish people. And that's necessary because since October the 7th, I'm afraid there's been a very peculiar response in many parts of the world, including, I'm sad to say, in London. And what we've seen is, I'm afraid, the re-emergence of anti-Semitism and a failure to focus on the appalling terroristic acts of Hamas.
Meanwhile, tributes have been paid to the former England, Spurs and Barcelona manager Terry Venables, who's died at the age of 80 after a long illness. Terry Venables managed England for 2 years, leading them to the semi-finals of Euro '96. He won the FA Cup as a player and a manager with Tottenham and led Barcelona to the Spanish League title. His family released a statement earlier saying, "We are totally devastated by the loss of a wonderful husband." Gary Lineker, who played under Mr Venables, described him as vibrant, charming, witty and a friend. This is GB News. We're live across the UK on TV, digital radio and on your smart speaker too. Now, it's back to Mark.
My thanks to Aaron Armstrong, who returns in an hour's time. R.I.P. Terry Venables' El Tel, a man that brought many happy memories to England fans and us Spurs supporters. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, 20% of the public haven't decided who they're going to vote for at the next election, which means it's all to play for in a year's time. Are Labour celebrating victory too soon? My verdict coming up. In the big story, an explosive new book from Harry and Meghan's favourite journalist looks set to cause more chaos for King Charles. We'll get reaction from fearless royal commentator Lady Colin Campbell. Meanwhile, Doctor Who goes woke. Take a listen.
I promise I can help him get home and then you'll never see me again.
You're assuming he as a pronoun.
True. Yes, sorry, good point. Are you he or she or they?
Doctor Who, Doctor Woke, will get reaction from one of the stars of last night's 60th anniversary episode. My Mark Meets guest is the Christian conservative US presidential hopeful Dr. Taylor Marshall. Could a return to traditional family values save America? Also, as an extraordinary GB News civil war breaks out between two of its biggest stars, Richard Tice and Lee Anderson, is a vote for Reform UK a vote for Keir Starmer? I'll be asking one of the party's most high-profile supporters, Anne Widdecombe. We've got tomorrow's front pages at 10:30 with three top pundits who haven't been told what to say and who don't follow the script. Tonight, Sajila Kershi, Andy MacDonald and Neil Parish. Plus, the most important part of the show, your emails. They come straight to my laptop, mark@gbnews.com. And this show has a golden rule. We don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. A big 2 hours to come. We start with my big opinion. Here is a little reported fact that will keep the cervix-free leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer, awake at night. The latest polling suggests that 20% of the public haven't decided who they're going to vote for at the next election. The don't knows will likely decide who goes into number 10, which I think gives hope to our pint-sized Premier, Rishi Sunak, whose glass might be half full rather than half empty tonight. With millions of voters who are don't knowers up and for grabs and available, there is so much that we do know. Inflation is coming down and growth is going in the right direction, whilst Germany languishes in recession. And Britain has just leapfrogged France as number 8 in the world for manufacturing. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, those who say we don't make stuff anymore. We've got a free trade deal with a bloc larger than the whole of the EU combined, the CPTPP, which I thought was a cough mixture, plus free trade with our Brussels neighbours, the EU. Inward investment into Britain is higher than Italy, France or Germany. And whilst the economy is still knackered, what do you expect after shutting the country down for 3 years? What's becoming clear, and what we do know, is that Britain is through the worst of it, and we are on the up. And whilst don't knows could decide the outcome of the next election, here's more of what we do know. The alternative to the Tories, who, don't get me wrong, have been terrible, is Labour, and they are worse. We do know that Labour are horribly divided over Israel, with scores of backbenchers calling for a ceasefire, which is a clear message to the only democracy in the Middle East to accept Hamas terror and, frankly, to suck it up. We do know that 5 years of Labour will mean 5 years of woke madness, with a leader of the opposition who can't even define what a woman is, even though he's married to one. And still, to this day, so-called gender-critical MPs, which in my book means gender-factual, are being targeted by the hard left of the party. The brilliant Labour MP, Rosie Duffield, who has stood up bravely for women's hard-won sex-based rights and challenges the mad idea that you can change your biological sex, is being targeted in a Labour Party deselection campaign because she liked a joke on Twitter. Starmer originally wanted self-ID, in which you can unilaterally suddenly decide you're a lady, and Labour backbencher Lloyd Russell Moyle reacted in this troubling manner after a speech from Tory MP Miriam Cates defending women-only spaces.
Women are far less powerful than men. We can't defend ourselves.
The idea of linking trans people with predators, frankly, is disgusting, and you should be ashamed.
No, calm down.
Moments later, Russell Moyle sat closer to Cates and was accused of intimidation. The Labour MP later apologised for his tone. I'm sure he did. Let me be clear, Labour is the party of trans madness, that we do know. What else do we know? That if they reach power, Labour will be under massive pressure from the public sector for a flood of investment, even though the country's broke. Every department will be crying out for cash that we haven't got. So that's more spending and more borrowing. Good luck tackling inflation and the national debt with Keir Starmer in charge. We do know that Labour will be under enormous pressure from the unions to give their members a bumper pay rise. If you thought the strikes were bad under the Tories, just imagine a Labour government who are funded by the union barons. Let me tell you, it's very hard to stand up to the people who are paying your wages. We do know that Labour are less likely to push back on woke madness in the classroom, with children being told they're racist because of the colour of their skin. Children being brainwashed into the idea that we have a shameful rather than glorious history. And children being told that they may have been born in the wrong body, that they're Johnny rather than Jane. We do know that Labour are unlikely to stop the boats or tackle legal net migration, given that they blocked the Rwanda plan and other government measures. And many in the Labour movement don't really believe in national borders. They love a bit of free movement, which is why many on the backbenches crave a closer relationship with the EU. And that's another thing. We do know that Brexit is not safe in the hands. Why? Well, because Brexit is anathema to the North London chattering classes, who are Labour's ideological audience. They hate the idea of British sovereignty. They're not patriotic, and they particularly detest people power. So, a week is a long time in politics. The election could be in May, but it could be as late as November, which is almost a year from now. Which means it's all to play for. The only thing we do know is the don't-knows will decide it. Mrs Starmer shouldn't be measuring up for curtains at number 10 just yet. The Tories might pull themselves together. There's always time for a cheeky wink. What's your view? Mark at gbnews.com. I'll get to your thoughts shortly. Have I been too harsh on Labour? Let me know. I'd particularly be curious if you disagree. But let's hear from my top pundits tonight who are built to disagree with me. I've got no friends out there. Broadcaster and comedian Sajila Kershi, trade unionist and broadcaster Andy MacDonald, and former Conservative MP and farmer Neil Parish. Great to have all three of you with me. Sajila, it's all to play for at the next election. I don't think that Labour should be popping the champagne corks just yet.
No, I kind of agree with you on that. Do I think that the Tories have got a free rein? No. I think both of them have let down the citizens of this country. I'm disgusted with both of them. I agree with you that a lot of people don't know where to vote. I think it's self-evident. I'm sorry, but what the Tories have done the past since they've been in power. Oh, we're going to get Brexit done. We're going to get Brexit done and close our borders. Well, we've never had more people, and the borders are so open day, night and 24 hours, and the French are helping them to load the dinghies. So well done on that. Oh, immigration, that's still ongoing. It's never gone away. Suella talked the talk, big talk, but, she was mean and nasty and actually talking about hate marches. She was hateful. So it was pretty. Nobody did anything. It's rubbish. So the Tories haven't done anything. They've failed on many accounts. But Labour, I'm so disgusted. I do not think Starmer is the man to take us forward. The fact that he was happy to... people, if they want to vote for a ceasefire, let them vote for ceasefire. That he was going to sack people, that disgusts me. He's got no backbone. And I think, actually, I don't think either party are going to do us any good. And I think we're screwed.
And the thing is, Sir Julia, would you identify as a Labour supporter normally?
I would have been, but, I mean, you know, I wasn't too fond of Labour during the Blair years. You forget that he was Labour, really, don't you, sometimes? But I just think we've never been so poor in terms of politics, and who is going to help citizens out there? We've got no one. We're screwed, and there's like too many career politicians letting us down. I just don't think anyone actually gives a damn about ordinary people out there.
Yeah. OK, well, look, Andy MacDonald, the Tories have been terrible. Labour would be worse.
I completely disagree. I think, you know, if we look over the last 13 years or even the last 2 years, it's just been a complete mess. You know, they don't take anything seriously. You know, you've had 8 Home Secretaries in 13 years. They clearly don't take border security seriously. You've had 9 Business Secretaries in 13 years. They clearly don't take industry seriously. You know, we had 3 Prime Ministers in 2 years. Clearly, they don't take the leadership seriously. You know, we look at the government. They're clearly not serious people. But when you look at the Labour Party, you see people who have actually served the country. Keir Starmer, when he was Director of Public Prosecutions, he served the country well, and you just don't see that in the Conservatives.
Neil Parish, your thoughts about the 20% who are undecided? I would suggest that that's good news for Rishi Sunak. It's all to play for.
Yes, Mark, there's voters out there to play for. I mean, as I've said before on your programme, I think the Tories are drinking at the last chance saloon, because you're going to have to get most of that 20% to vote Tory if you're going to actually hold the general election. Now, I would disagree with my friend next door here, because I think that, you know, with Rishi Sunak, you do actually have a Prime Minister there who will make decisions. Now, yes, lots and lots of problems, but if you think, you know, border control is going to happen under Labour, it's not. But have the Tories done enough? No, they haven't. So I think, you know, people out there are really very undecided, and I think they are really, you know, I mean, I'm being quite blunt with you, I think they are absolutely fed up with politics at the moment. Yeah. And so I think Labour will win, but I think they'll win by default. I don't think they're particularly, you know, enamoured by Keir Starmer. If the Tories manage to hold together and go into the general election reasonably united, then it may work for them. The problem is that while they languish 20 points behind in the opinion polls, they will divide. That is the problem, and they've divided lately, so they really have got to pull together once and for all if they've got any chance of winning the next general election.
Here's a question I've got for you, watching on TV or listening on the radio. Have you ever met a Keir Starmer fan? I think that could be indicative of what's going to happen in a year's time. In our increasingly presidential system, I wonder whether shares in Rishi Sunak are a fraction too low and shares in Starmer a touch too high. Let me know your thoughts, Mark, at gbnews.com. But coming up next, in the big story, an explosive new book from Harry and Meghan's favourite journalist looks set to cause more chaos for King Charles. We'll get reaction from fearless royal commentator Lady Colin Campbell. It's going to be lively. See you in 2.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, look, a big reaction to my big opinion, Mark at gbnews.com. Alan says, Mark, all you're hearing now from Labour is an excuse that it will take 5 to 10 years putting things right, and they blame the Conservatives for everything. Their spokespersons have stopped giving answers to policies now, except we don't know what we will inherit, but it will be fully costed, and Alan is not convinced about that message. And Peter says Starmer has got a fan in the corner of his office. Brilliant stuff. Keep those emails coming, mark at gbnews.com. Lots to get through, including a wonderful surprise at 10 o'clock. But first, it's time for the big story, and an explosive new book written by Harry and Meghan's favourite journalist looks set to cause more chaos and heartache for King Charles. In widely reported excerpts from Endgame by Omid Scobie, Scobie alleges a rift between King Charles and his son Prince William, with the Prince of Wales painted as an ambitious hothead snapping at the heels of his father. Meanwhile, the book also alleges that King Charles referred to Prince Harry as that fool, and that Princess Kate is too terrified to do anything except grinning photo ops. Pretty harsh stuff. How much is true? Let's get reaction to this explosive new book from fearless royal commentator and author Lady Colin Campbell. Lady Colin, thank you so much for joining us on Mark Dolan tonight. Following the release of the Netflix documentary, this new book alleges the King Charles referred to Prince Harry as that fool. Do you think that account is credible?
Oh, that one I think is credible. I think it's one of the few credible things in all the excerpts. That is credible. And in fact, the king could have said an awful lot more than, I think that calling Harry a fool was very anodyne. But my understanding is that, in fact, he called him a lot worse. And let's face facts, he could have actually called him things like traitor, disloyal, Iscariot. So calling him a fool is very, very mild.
And it looks like Kate Middleton gets given a hard time in this book, Lady Colin, characterised as a royal upstart, only qualified to do grinning photo ops. What's going on here? It couldn't be jealousy from the Meghan camp, could it?
Absolutely not. Why would Meghan be jealous of Catherine? Just because Catherine has the most fabulous figure and the most gorgeous legs, and Meghan has 2 chicken sticks on 2 chicken feet.
Lady Colin Campbell, can I interrupt you there? Meghan Markle, love her or hate her, she's one of the most beautiful women in the world.
Well, you must be blind or you need new glasses, Mark. Sorry. She's not one of the most beautiful women in the world. She's very presentable after she's made up, but she's not any great beauty. First of all, her nose has been collapsing for years, and second, it's an artifice. The mouth is a barracuda mouth. I mean, Catherine is naturally good looking. Meghan is an artificial construct, not only in terms of her personality and her supposed ambitions, but also in terms of her physiognomy. I mean,
well, look, I think, Lady Colin, you're entitled to your view. I disagree. I think she's very, very stunning. I don't like what comes out of her mouth a lot of the time, but she's very glamorous, she's very elegant. But of course, you're entitled to your view. Listen, but in the end, do you think that that sort of rivalry between Catherine and Meghan is ongoing?
Oh, I think it's a rival. I think it's tremendous envy from Meghan's point of view. Meghan is jealous because she'd like to be number one, and she's never going to be. She doesn't have as good a figure as Catherine. She doesn't have as good looking a face as Catherine. She doesn't wear clothes as well as Catherine. She's not as popular as Catherine. And she wants to be number one, and she's never going to be number one. But I don't think Catherine's jealous of Meghan. Why would she be? I mean, Meghan is an insignificant creature as far as Catherine's concerned.
OK, and Lady Colin, there were those revelations about the alleged or imagined skin colour of the Sussex's unborn child. The hunt for the royal racist continues. Now the book claims that there are two. What do we make of that?
Well, I mean, let's face facts. Amit Scabies is as accurate and as truthful as Meghan and Harry. Harry and Meghan couldn't even agree on the Oprah interview as to who said what, when, or where, because Meghan had it when she was pregnant with Archie, and Harry had it before they were married, that there was a concern from one person. They now have come up with two people. You know, you're dealing with people who have absolutely no respect for fact and simply just grab things that are going to be column inches. It's all about publicity, and it's all about empty vessels making a lot of noise.
Now, Lady Colin, the book alleges tension between Prince William and his father, King Charles, over how to run the monarchy. The claims are that William wants to rip up the rule book and do things, quote, the Cambridge way, in a challenge to his father. Apparently, he's got his eye on the throne. Do you identify any tension between father and son?
I think the whole thing's ludicrous. The claim is ridiculous. The King and William have a very close, good working relationship and personal relationship. They didn't always have such a good personal relationship, but they certainly do now. And as we have seen with recent activities, they divide up the issues. So William will do, say, A to M, and the King will do N to Z. So it's inventions. All of this is trying to make out that there are problems where there aren't. I mean, let's remember, Scabies has said that Charles is unpopular, the monarchy is unpopular. 60-something% of the people of this country have said they are in favour of a monarchy. Is that unpopular? I mean, the whole thing's ludicrous. And also, let's not forget, Scabies doesn't even know the difference between 1 and 2, because he says he is biracial, but he is half Caucasian and half Caucasian. So two ones, one and one, it doesn't make you biracial if it's identical, but he's playing the race card.
Okay.
He's inventing things. And may I say, if anybody who believes that Scabies has been speaking to people at the palace who are close to William and Catherine are absolutely idiotic, because nobody close to William and Catherine, or indeed to the King or the Queen, will speak to Scabies.
OK, now I understand, Lady Colin, I understand that you're referring to Omid Scobie, the author of this book, as Scabies in a satirical, impulse. But the bottom line is, The bottom line, of course, is that Omid Scobie has written this book. It's going to sell a lot of copies, and we're talking about it. Love him or hate him, this guy knows how to make headlines, and he's been very successful. Now, Lady Colin, there's zero evidence that they've contributed to it in any way, but is this book helpful to the Sussexes, do you think?
It will be helpful to them in that it keeps them topical. And in fact, the Sussexes have contributed to it, and I know who they've done it through. And I'm not prepared to tell you. I'm saving it for myself.
Do it. Lady Colin, I've only got a couple of seconds. Don't want to get in trouble with Greg because I've been a good boy all weekend. But last but not least, the book suggests that William thinks his brother Harry has been brainwashed by an army of Californian therapists. Is he right?
Well, I think that's a part of the problem. I don't think that's the whole problem. I think William is partly right, but Harry's head has been turned not only by therapists who are actually irresponsible, and I speak as someone who wrote a book on personality disorders and has had therapy myself, because therapy, the result of therapy is to accept your fate and make the best of it. Not. I
think I need a bit of therapy tonight. Yeah. Lady Colin Campbell, always a thrill to have you on the show, never boring, and I look forward to your next book, brilliant best-selling author and royal commentator Lady Colin Campbell. Coming up with tonight's top pundits, Doctor Who goes woke.
You're assuming he as a pronoun.
True. Yes, sorry, good point. Are you he or she or they?
Well, that scene has ruffled feathers. It's broken the internet. We'll get reaction from one of the stars of last night's 60th anniversary episode. That's next. Doctor Who woke.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GBNews, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GBNews, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Well, listen, a big reaction to my debate with the marvellous Lady Colin Campbell, royal commentator and author. This new book is coming out on Tuesday, and it's very disparaging about the King and about Prince William. It's very kind about the Sussexes. I can't imagine why that would be. This from Jackie. Hi, Mark. Yes, you need to change your glasses. Lady C is completely right, as always. Meghan versus Kate, apart from character and personality, there's no contest in the looks department. It's beautiful and elegant, Kate, hands down. Look, I'll get to more of your emails very shortly. But, folks, Doctor Who celebrated its 60-year anniversary with a special episode last night starring former Time Lord David Tennant. The show was very well received, winning rave reviews and achieving bumper ratings. Although this particular moment in which an alien discusses their gender pronouns wasn't everyone's cup of tea. Take a listen.
I promise I can help him get home and then you'll never see me again.
You're assuming he as a pronoun.
True. Yes, sorry, good point. Are you he or she or they?
My chosen pronoun is the definite article. I am always the me.
Wow. Well, joining me to discuss this, I'm delighted to welcome one of the stars of last night's programme, actor Jamie Cho, who played Colonel Chan. Jamie, massive congratulations on the success of the show. First of all, tell me about your emotions when you got the gig joining this iconic programme.
Yeah, it was well, thanks for having me, first of all. It was amazing. It was one of those jobs, you know, you just do one audition, you forget about it, and then your agent calls you and they're like, oh, you've got the job. I was like, oh, fantastic. And then when you get the script through, you see, oh, like, I'm in this scene, I'm in this scene, I'm in this scene. And then it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, listen, what about that scene? Gender pronouns for the alien, that's a bit much. Has Doctor Who gone Doctor Woke?
I don't think so. I think he's just having a bit of fun. I mean, it's just, it's tongue-in-cheek, wasn't it, what he was saying?
Yeah. Well, do you think that was it? Do you think the writers are, in a way, sort of mocking people that would be offended by that? Is it a sort of a bit of satire almost?
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, you know, obviously I wasn't involved in the writing process, but you know, Russell T Davies, who's the writer of the 3 specials, he's really talented, and maybe that's something close to his heart. And like everyone, they put it into their work, and yeah, it's just a bit of fun, I think, a bit of tongue in cheek.
Most definitely. Well, listen, we're going to talk about your role in the show, the history of that programme in just a second. Let's bring my pundits into this if we can. Sajila Kershi, Neil Parish and Andy McDonald. It was a cracking episode, but Sajila, the pronouns scene, your reaction, were you triggered?
Oh my God, I need to go. I need help. I need a massage. No, I wasn't triggered. I think it's kind of... I've actually stopped, with all due respect to your guests, that I've stopped watching Doctor Who since they brought in a woman. Not because I'm a self-loathing feminist, just like I just like had other things to do, like have a life and stuff. But I think it's quite right that they would have a trans kind of reference or a pronoun reference, because that's the zeitgeist that they're kind of like touching on, and that's going to include younger people. So I don't have a problem with that per se. But do aliens have pronouns? That's an interesting one. Would they be insulted? I don't think so. I mean, from what we've seen from Roswell, they don't seem to have any gender at all, because there's no, you know, no regions, no area, you know, no, I don't want to say the words, but, you know, between their alien legs, they don't have anything.
Well, listen, I'll tell you, Sajila, before I get to the others, you've dropped a bit of a bombshell there. Are you suggesting that you didn't want Doctor Who to be a woman?
It wasn't that. It's just I think I got to the end of... Yeah, I did. I tell you what it is. I don't want things messed around with. James Bond, right? I mean, he is a cad. He's a git. You know, he's sexist. He's you know, misogynistic, and that's who he is. That's his character. I don't want him having an overhaul to be a nice gentleman and buy woman dinner first before he... I don't want to see that, because that's who he is. That's the genre and that's what you buy into. If you want to have a nice buy, make another series. Doctor Who was Doctor Who. And so, you know, he regenerated into... I mean, I quite like the idea that he regenerated into a woman, but I didn't have any kind of zest to watch it after that, and not because I had anything against the fact that it was a woman. I just thought, well, you know, I'm kind of done with this genre now.
Neil, listen, the bottom line is Jamie and the team at Doctor Who very much won the argument. It was a very well-received show with massive ratings.
Yeah, I mean, I think the alien is very cute, and I think the children love that. I mean, I think, as been said, I think it's interesting to know whether aliens have any genders at all, let alone transgender. So it's an interesting one. So I suppose the sort of serious point is that will children watch that and then decide that they want to change their sexuality or they are transgender? I mean, I think probably unlikely. I mean, I must admit on this occasion, Mark, I'm not getting overly excited about it. I think it was a good show, but I think, you know, we just got to be a little bit careful as we move forward. Have we got to change everything? So there may be a little bit of scepticism in me for the reason of having it there in the first place, but I think I'm fairly laid back about it, and I think most people enjoyed it. I think, like I said, aliens are cute, kids enjoy it, and I think we can live with it.
Andy, listen, it was very successful last night. It's been going for 60 years. Is it the greatest science fiction series ever made?
Oh, I don't know. That's quite the statement to make. I'm not sure. I enjoyed Doctor Who when it was the Matt Smith era. You know, when you had Amy Pond and Clara towards the end. I thought that was the peak of it for me, because that's the Doctor that I grew up with. Yeah. And Peter Capaldi, kind of like, he was quite rogue with it, and I enjoyed him for a time. But you know, even if it's not the greatest science fiction series of all time, it's definitely up there, particularly one of the best British science fiction programmes of all time. But I think on this whole pronouns thing, it's really not that deep. I think anyone who's actually getting upset over this needs to kind of...
Well, I think it's funny, Jamie, and I think it was tongue-in-cheek. I think it's got us talking, which is no bad thing. Yeah. You've joined a programme, Jamie, with a 60-year legacy. Is that a big responsibility? Was it nerve-wracking on set?
It was, yeah, it really was. But everyone was really cool. Like David Tennant, Catherine Tate, they're super down-to-earth, welcoming. And in fact, the whole crew, everyone, Russell and everyone was super cool. And yeah, it was just an amazing experience.
Do you think the show could manage and achieve another 60 years, Jamie?
I don't see why not, right? I mean, like, the production value is getting better, the storylines are getting more fun, the acting's even crazier, so I don't see why not.
Listen, you were absolutely brilliant in the show last night. What's next for you?
I've been doing a lot of writing, actually. So I've written a feature film, which I want to direct. So I'm working on that at the moment. And yeah, and then just same old auditioning like any other actor.
Well, unless they're mad, they will give you the part. Jamie Cho, what a treat to have you on the show. Well done with last night's programme. Do check it out on the iPlayer. It will be up there for a good few weeks to come. Jamie Cho, who played Colonel Chan in Doctor Who. Your reaction, mark at gbnews.com. Brilliant stuff. Look, we've got a really busy hour and 20 minutes to come. After 10 o'clock, as an extraordinary GB News civil war breaks out between two of its biggest stars, Richard Tice and Lee Anderson, is a vote for Reform UK a vote for Keir Starmer? I'll be asking one of the party's most high-profile supporters, Anne Widdecombe. So, all of that to come, but next up, it's Mark Meets, and it's a very special one. It is a Christian conservative in the United States who wants to be US president. Can traditional family values save America? It's an incredible interview, and it's next. Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
After 10, as an extraordinary GB News civil war breaks out between 2 of its biggest stars, Richard Tice and Lee Anderson, is a vote for Reform UK a vote for Keir Starmer? I'll be asking one of the party's most high-profile supporters, Anne Widdecombe. But it's time now for Mark Meets. And a few days ago, I caught up with a top Christian Conservative presidential hopeful who hopes that traditional family values could save America. Time now to speak to renowned historical author, broadcaster and philosopher, Dr. Taylor Marshall. Dr. Taylor, privileged to have you on the channel. A broken economy, a divided society. America, what happened?
We've had a rough last couple of years here. And, you know, we had a good go with President Trump. It was not perfect, but we had a lot of acceleration, I think both on a spiritual level, but on a political level as well. And you know, we elected Joe Biden, and the wheels have come off in the last couple of years, and we're now, you know, wrapped up in 2 wars and a declining economy and a difficult stock market. And I would say in America, discouragement, whether you're a liberal or a conservative, a Christian, a non-Christian, there is a general discouragement in the United States of America. And I don't know if we continue to go the way of decline and see things that have happened in certain European countries, or if we're able to lift out of this nosedive. I guess we'll wait and see in the next election cycle.
And what's happened to America? Is it a spiritual crisis or just an issue with policy?
It's absolutely a spiritual crisis. You know, grace flows downstream. You know, all grace comes, all goodness comes from Almighty God. And America has always had a religious sense to it. And that's been lost in particular over the last, I mean, you could say 60 years, but in particular, the last 10 to 20 years. If you just look at the demographics, the polls, you see that belief in God has gone down. And, you know, you kind of see that in real demographics like the birth rate, divorce rate. You know, these indicators show that the American people are losing their fervor. And, America had more of a spiritual sense, I think even more than Europe in the last 50 years. And it's difficult to see that. I chalk it up to a very aggressive media campaign, both in film, news, advertising, commercial. It's becoming very strong, and there's a strong anti-family bent that's growing in the United States of America. So, yeah, it's most definitely spiritual, and the work I'm in is, of course, political, but also trying to revive the idea of Christ as King, and there is nothing wrong with saying these should be our political convictions, our political beliefs, and we're going to work together because, I don't know, you find them in the Bible, or they are part of natural law, or this is historic Christian political theory. I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I think Christians have shied away from that too long. They think, oh, well, we can't bring our convictions and our faith into the public space. That's created a vacuum, and that vacuum has been filled with radical secularism and agendas that are against the family and against the common good of our nation, United States of America. And of course, that's the same experience in other Western countries.
So the woke takeover of the West and the United States in particular, cancel culture, stifling political correctness, gender ideology, critical race theory, you name it, a whole bunch of contested and frankly, bonkers ideas. You think this has replaced Christianity?
Yes, in particular in the United States in the last 10 to 5 years, the BLM, the Black Lives Matter, there's this increased racial tension. When I was growing up, I think there was less racial tension in the 80s and 90s than there are now in the 2020s in the United States of America. I think the Democratic Party has fostered that. It's a form of Marxism, social Marxism, and putting classes against one another, maybe not economic classes, but ethnic classes. And then also, the LGBT agenda has really been pushed strongly in the last 5 years, really, politically and in the media. And that has eroded a sense of family. They said, oh, we just want to be married. It's just private between us. But it's really been pushed down the American people's throats. And although some are pushing back, if you look at the polls, again, you just look at real facts, more and more Americans are becoming not just tolerant, but acceptant of that radical agenda. And that doesn't bode well for us.
Indeed. What is behind wokeism, and what is the end game, do you think? What is the goal?
The end game, wokeism is ultimately atheism. Wokeism is, well, you could even say beyond atheism, it's Luciferian. It is, I will not serve, I will define reality. Instead of seeing reality as it is in nature, or as God has defined reality. That's how humans, at least in Christendom, have operated for close to 2,000 years. Instead, I will define myself. I will not serve. And so everything is for debate. So if you say, well, we can define marriage, or the state can define marriage, that means the state can define anything. It can define personhood. It can define what is a man, what is a woman, everything. And once we allow the governments to have that authority, we are giving them divine powers to redefine what is reality. And that has to be taken back. That has to be lodged safely again with the church, and the church having her proper influence over government. Because there, again, going back to the vacuum, there can be no vacuum. There has to be a definition of what is holy matrimony, and a definition of what it is to be a man, and what it is to be a woman, and what is a family. And that definition was given to us at the very beginning of creation. There's a story there, Adam and Eve, and the family, and marriage, and man and woman. It's all laid out there. If we reject that, then ultimately it's up to some sort of demographic experiment on what is matrimony, what is family, what is man, what is woman. If we don't have those categories and those substances defined, in our minds, then we're going to lose the war. And I think in America, in a democracy, so-called, Christians, you see this with JFK. He said, well, my faith is not going to influence my policies. That is sort of the 1950s, 1960s understanding that we will allow there to be a neutrality in the public square, and we will privately have our own beliefs. Well, we started that in the 50s and the 60s, and then as soon as we got into the 90s and the 2000s, that vacuum began to be filled. And radical secularism, Marxism has filled in that void. And so I think there are a lot of, on your side of the sea and on ours, there's a lot of great minds who are saying, now, wait a second, this idea that Christians pretend to be neutral and do not put their convictions into the public square, we will lose 10 out of 10 times if we do that.
Well, indeed, I want to ask you if woke has won. Is there any rowing back from this toxic ideology?
I think there is. We reach low points, and sometimes, you look at something like the French Revolution, which was so thoroughgoing in all of French thinking, life, economics, and there was a recovery from that, a little rough, little bumpy. But I think there can be, death and sin always consume and eat themselves. There are no friends in hell. Ultimately, everyone hates themselves and hates one another. So, the demonic cannot thrive forever. Maybe this is the end, and maybe that's that.
What a fascinating debate. Look, there are two sides to every story, aren't there? Let's be honest, Joe Biden, he might be a little bit doddery, but the American economy is doing incredibly well, and many think that he could win another 4 years in power. There's plenty of support out there for the Democrats, but listen, we'll be watching with great interest, and let me tell you, you will have uninterrupted coverage of the US elections next year on GB News. After 10, as an extraordinary GB News civil war breaks out between two of its biggest stars, Richard Tice and Lee Anderson, is a vote for Reform UK a vote for Keir Starmer? I'll be asking Anne Widdecombe, plus a developing story from the jungle. Nigel Farage's team are not happy with ITV. This is explosive stuff. This could cost ITV millions. Find out more after this.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like? I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. Now, this is all happening, folks. This is not a drill. Nigel Farage has thrown down the gauntlet and wants to lead the jungle. If he shows strong leadership and whips the campmates into shape, is this the path to number 10? Plus, you won't believe this story. Nigel's lawyers have sent a furious letter to I'm a Celebrity bosses after showing his bare backside to millions of viewers, a decision which could cost the broadcaster a fortune in compensation. And to make matters worse, a top ITV boss has been caught making obscene jokes about Nigel at a private event. We'll get reaction to this exploding I'm a Celebrity storm in the company of two of the show's former stars. More drama, this time at home. As an extraordinary GB News civil war breaks out between two of its biggest stars, Richard Tice and Lee Anderson, is a vote for Reform UK a vote for Keir Starmer? I'll be asking one of the party's most high-profile supporters, Anne Widdecombe. Plus, tomorrow's newspaper front pages and live reaction in the studio from tonight's top pundits. So, a packed show, lots to get through. Nigel's lawyers in touch with ITV. They're not happy. It could cost ITV a fortune. We're calling it Bumgate. We got the details after the headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Marcus. Very good evening to you. Aaron Armstrong here in the GB newsroom. Thousands of people have cheered as a convoy carrying a third group of hostages released by Hamas has arrived in Israel. Israelis lined the streets as 17 captives made the journey from Gaza. Meanwhile, Israel's prison service confirmed the release of 39 Palestinian prisoners in exchange. It's the third of a four-day pause in fighting. In total, the two sides have agreed to swap 50 Israeli hostages for 150 jailed Palestinians. A 4-year-old Israeli-American girl was amongst those released earlier. The US President Joe Biden's welcomed the news and says he hopes the truce will be extended.
So I'm hopeful this is not the end. It's going to continue. But we don't know. And but I get a sense that all the players in the region, even the neighbors who aren't and have been directly involved now, are looking for a way to end this so the hostages are all released and Hamas is completely, how can I say it, no longer in control of any portion of Gaza.
Meanwhile, Israel's Prime Minister's told Joe Biden his forces will resume their campaign in Gaza with full force once the temporary truce comes to an end. However, Benjamin Netanyahu said he would welcome an extension to the humanitarian pause if it meant 10 additional hostages would be released every day, as agreed under the original Qatari brokered deal. Earlier in the day, Mr Netanyahu met troops inside northern Gaza, where he reiterated Israel's main goal of eliminating Hamas. A man's been arrested on suspicion of a racially aggravated public order offence in London as tens of thousands marched against anti-Semitism. Police say he was heard shouting at crowds towards the end of the day. It was the second of two arrests. Earlier, the founder of the English Defence League, Tommy Robinson, was pepper-sprayed by police as they arrested him after he tried to join the march. It comes amid concerns over a steep rise in hate crime in the UK sparked by the conflict in Gaza. Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who was at the march, described anti-Semitism as a virus.
What we're all doing here, and the only thing we're really doing, is showing solidarity with Jewish people. And that's necessary because since October the 7th, I'm afraid there's been a very peculiar response in many parts of the world, including, I'm sad to say, in London. And what we've seen is, I'm afraid, the re-emergence of anti-Semitism and a failure to focus on the appalling terroristic acts of Hamas.
And the former England, Spurs and Barcelona manager Terry Venables has died at the age of 80 after a long illness. He managed England for 2 years, leading them to the semi-finals of Euro 96. Venables won the FA Cup as a player and a manager with Tottenham and led Barcelona to the Spanish League title. His family released a statement saying we're totally devastated by the loss of a wonderful husband. Gary Lineker, who played under Venables, described him as vibrant, charming, witty and a friend. Well, we are live across the UK, on TV, on digital radio. If you want us on your smart speaker, it's simply play GB News. Now, over to Mark.
My thanks to Aaron Armstrong, who returns in an hour's time. R.I.P. to the football legend Terry Venables. I'm a Spurs fan. He did great stuff at the Lane, and he was a great England manager as well. Did you see that footage of him taking his cup of tea to the press conference? They don't make him like that anymore. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. As an extraordinary GB News civil war breaks out between two of its biggest stars, Richard Tice and Lee Anderson, is a vote for Reform UK a vote for Keir Starmer? I'll be asking one of the party's most high-profile supporters, Anne Widdecombe. Plus, I'll be asking Anne, whose team is she in? Is it going to be Anderson or is it Tice? The ultimate grudge match. Plus, tomorrow's newspaper front pages and live reaction in the studio from tonight's top pundits. Plus, they'll be nominating their headline heroes and back page zeros. A packed hour to come, and those papers are on the way. But first, it's our I'm a Celebrity verdict. Tonight, Nigel Farage has thrown down the gauntlet and wants to lead the jungle. He's put an official bid in to take control of the group. If he shows strong leadership and whips the campmates into shape, is this the path to number 10? Meanwhile, Nigel's lawyers have sent a furious letter to I'm a Celebrity bosses after showing his bare backside to millions of viewers whilst he was taking a shower. A decision which could cost the broadcaster a fortune in compensation. To make matters worse, a top ITV boss has been caught making obscene jokes about Nigel at a private event. So let's get reaction to this brewing I'm a Celebrity storm in the company of two of the show's previous stars. Former top royal correspondent at the BBC, Jenny Bond, and Radio 1 legend broadcaster Mike Reid. Jenny, does Nigel have what it takes to lead the jungle?
Oh, probably, but I don't think it's a very good idea because he's a bit too bossy for my liking, and I think he will get up at everyone's noses, actually, in the end. So thus far, he's behaved reasonably well, actually. I think he's been rather surprised by the fact he hasn't been voted in for more trials. He's made it very apparent that he's playing the game. He said on television, I don't know if he realised the cameras and the microphones were on, that he wanted to do the trials because that gave him 25% more airtime. It's all a strategy and a tactic, and I don't think it goes down too well with the public. I don't know about the campmates.
Yes, I mean, Mike Reid, if Nigel shows the right qualities of leadership, if he does gain control of the camp, does that pave the way for number 10?
It's certainly brought its odds down, hasn't it, to about 20 to 1, I think. Its odds have been slashed by, I think, from 30 or 40 to 1 down to 20 to 1. So yeah, I think he's doing very, very well in there. I think he's being reasonable in the face of people being put in there to bait him. He's dealt with that very well. He's dealt with everything very well. He's been placid. He's been reasoned. So yeah, I mean, I think he's done very well. As radio laureate, I had to pen a few words about his bottom, of course, which is a small limerick, Mark. Celebrity camper Farage has created a media barrage. He's caused mass hysteria with his naked posterior, which is something he should camouflage.
Absolute TV gold. Poet laureate. I mean, honestly, that was quite special indeed, Mike. I don't know whether you can be as poetic, Jenny. Can we talk about a rather furious letter, though, from Nigel's lawyers to ITV? Of course, the programme showed Nigel in the nude to millions of viewers whilst he took a shower. Do they have a case to answer, do you think, Jenny?
No, I don't. God, Mike, when we were in the jungle, nobody got naked. I mean, probably Katie Price could have got naked and made absolutely millions there and then. She made millions afterwards, but we showed respect for one another. And I mean, come on, Nigel, you're being totally naive. You go in the jungle, you know there are cameras on you 24/7, wherever you are, save just perhaps in the dunny itself, behind the canvas, the Hessian curtain. That's about the only place you can think there isn't a camera. You know, if you want to get your kit off, be prepared for it to be shown on television. That's what I say, and don't make a fuss about it. But it's got him more publicity, and that's what he's after.
Well, Jenny, are you suggesting that Nigel got his butt cheeks out in order to get coverage and to make headlines?
I am.
You say coverage.
Oh, my goodness. What do you make of this Bumgate conspiracy, that it was all planned by Nigel, Mike Reid?
No, I think the bottom line really is that he just. Do you know? I showed my bottom, Jenny, when I was in there, and no one was interested. I was really upset.
OK, well, get it out now then. Let's bump up the show's ratings. Mike, did you have to sign any clauses about nudity? Because ITV deny that there is any kind of clause in the contract that protects your privacy. Did you have any sort of small print that would suggest no nudity?
The only small prints in the night were those made by rats, but no, we didn't actually. But people did get in the shower. They did get in the lake in bikinis, and mainly the women, and shower in there. I guess, you know, you had to be naked at some time because you were changing to get into bed. Apart from Razor Ruddock, who didn't change at all for the entire time. I think he stayed in the same clothes the entire time. But you have to change at some point. You have to take your clothes off. I mean, Charlie Brockett and myself used to go with our sponge bags as sort of schoolboys down to the river to wash every morning and clean our teeth and do ablutionary things. But so, yeah, you have to be, you know, a little unclothed at some point, yeah. But they decide what they show. They don't have to show that bit. They've filmed it. They do not have to show the naked bit if they don't want to.
Now, Jenny, top ITV boss Kevin Lygo was caught joking about Nigel Farage at a private event and told he made an obscene gesture about Nigel and said that he'll be, quote, leaving Australia in a dinghy. Now, I know Kevin Lygo very well. I worked under him for several years at Channel 4. He's a very creative and funny man. He's a very nice man. But did he go too far this time?
Do you know what? I think we should all get a bit of a sense of humour. I think Nigel and his lawyers should get a sense of humour. And I think if Kevin wants to make a joke about it, this is a funny show. Ant and Dec spent the whole time trying to make us laugh. Let's laugh about it, for goodness sake. Grow up, everybody.
Jenny, King of the Jungle Christopher Biggins told me on last night's show that he thinks I'm a Celebrity may be running out of steam, possibly with just 2 or 3 series left to go. Would you agree?
Well, sometimes I think that, but I suppose, like Mike, because we were in there, we watch it and think, oh, God, who's in my bed? But I am enjoying this series. I think it's a good cast. I think 1 or 2 of the trials are new. And I read a tweet of my own a couple of hours ago that said, I'm really tittering at this one. This is really funny, this trial. Now, because I've had a glass of 2 wine, I can't remember what it was. But anyway, I do know that it was making me laugh. I am enjoying it. And I think it's still got mileage, but largely because Ant and Dec are so very good. I think it's disgusting. It's more disgusting than when Mike and I were in there. I could not do, I don't think, some of the trials they have to do now. So it's more disgusting, but maybe that makes it even more watchable. I don't know. I'm enjoying it.
You did an amazing trial, though. You were buried underground with rats, and a lot of people couldn't have done that. That was amazing.
Jenny did a couple of decades at the Beeb, so she was well prepared. Can I ask you, Michael, finally, how far can Nigel go? I don't mean in terms of nudity, on the show.
I love it. Full frontal, I think. No, I think he'll do very, very well. I think he'll do very well. He's come over very well. A lot of people that weren't sure about him now actually quite like him. And a lot of people that were very anti-Nigel have now sort of warmed towards him. He's a very genial bloke. I mean, and of course, once people start, tagging you with things, then everybody does. There's a monster on the hill. Let's all go out with flaming torches, and suddenly the crowd swells, and nobody knows why they're following. But I think he's come over very well. Yeah.
Not as well as you, Mike. We loved your poem. Let's have more of that next time you're on. My thanks to radio legend Mike Reid and former top BBC Royal correspondent Jenny Bond. Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, Mike. Catch up soon. This is unbelievable. Coming up as an extraordinary GB News civil war breaks out between two of its biggest stars, Richard Tice and Lee Anderson. Is a vote for Reform UK a vote for Keir Starmer? I'll be asking one of the party's most high-profile supporters, Anne Widdecombe. Let me tell you that GB News management would rather that I don't talk about this story, but I'm very naughty, as you know, and that's exactly what we're doing in 2 minutes' time. Are you Team Tice or Team Anderson? Plus, in an exclusive Mark Dolan Tonight People's poll, we've been asking, were ITV wrong to show Nigel Farage's backside to millions of viewers? Well, the results are in, and I shall reveal all next, and I don't mean Nigel's bum.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's on your teeth. It's on your teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Now, we've conducted an exclusive Mark Dolan Tonight People's poll. We've been asking, were ITV wrong to show Nigel Farage's backside to millions of viewers? I'm calling it Bumgate. It's a growing scandal. Not his bum. What happened? The results are in, and 48.8% say no, and 51.2% say yes, they were wrong to show Nigel's derriere. I will add that for a man of his vintage, he's in excellent shape, and I think you'll agree he's smashing it in the jungle. Go Nigel. It's time now for the Newsmaker, and an extraordinary row has broken out between two of my colleagues. That's right, two of GB News' biggest stars, the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Lee Anderson, and Reform UK leader, Richard Tice. With Tice strongly denying claims that Lee Anderson was offered a huge amount of money to defect to the party. This comes as the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, is quoted as saying a vote for Reform UK would put Keir Starmer in number 10. Well, let's speak now to tonight's Newsmaker, one of the most high-profile supporters of Reform UK, former Government Minister and broadcaster Anne Widdecombe. Anne, a very good evening to you. First of all, Anne, this war of words between Lee Anderson and Richard Tice, could this turn nasty, or is it handbags at dawn?
Oh, I think this is almost inevitable in an election year. I think all of us can remember in 2019, as we were coming up to a general election, there were allegations that the Conservative Party had rung up and tried to do deals and bribe people not to stand, former Conservatives not to stand against their former colleagues, etc. So, this is par for the course, and it's not a GB News civil war. Come on, Mark. This is between two men who are in completely different parties and occupying very senior positions in those parties. But Lee Anderson has changed his story a bit, First of all, he said he'd received had been offered a huge amount of money, and I had visions of, sort of a large cheque being handed over. But then he said, no, actually, what he'd been asked to do was stand for Reform UK, and if he lost, he'd be found a job in the party. So it's gone from a pot of gold to a job in the party. Now, I don't take any of this seriously, and all I'm concerned about is the policies. And therefore, if you ask, am I Tice or Lee Anderson, I'm Tice, but on the basis of policies. Can you hear me, Mark?
I most certainly can, loud and clear, Anne. I'm just going to get a right of reply from Lee Anderson in a moment, but can I just ask you to confirm then, Anne, do Reform UK offer money for people to defect? Were you offered cash for your support?
Certainly not. And, of course, I didn't initially support Reform UK. I changed to the Brexit party because I wanted Brexit. I rang Nigel and proposed myself to join. Nobody suggested to me that I should. And then I didn't join Reform for quite a while because I had doubts about some of the policies. So I didn't join for quite a while. But then, because of the antics from the Tory party, I decided that, yes, I would join. And I've no regrets at all.
OK, let me tell you that Lee Anderson, Anne, has said the allegations made by Richard Tice are simply ridiculous. The facts are quite simple. From time to time, politicians do meet other politicians from different parties. At one such meeting, I was offered the chance to join another party for the following deal. I join within a few months and stand for this party at the next election. If I lost my seat, I'd be guaranteed a job with the party for 5 years on the same salary as an MP. To falsely claim that I used this as leverage to get the position of deputy chairman is an insult to me and my party. Well, there you go. A job which is the equivalent of 5 years as an MP. That sounds like a bribe to me, Anne.
Well, I mean, it depends entirely what the job entailed. If it was a token job, yes, that would be a bribe. If it was a very serious and demanding job, then, it might be lesser. But all I can say is that, as he himself says, politicians do meet each other from time to time, and huge pressure was put on me in 2019 by somebody senior in number 10, and this is a fact to which I would willingly testify with my hand on the good book. I was phoned up by a senior person in number 10 to say that if I would stand down, then they would involve me in what they called the Brexit talks, and heaven knows what that meant. But, this sort of stuff goes on the whole time.
How did you feel when you received that call? What were your emotions, Anne?
Well, I was furious. I mean, first of all, the person who called me tried to put enormous pressure on me not to stand, said it would be my fault if the Conservatives lost because I was standing in a marginal seat. It would be my fault if the Labour chap won again and the Conservatives lost. And so, first of all, he put that pressure on me, and I said, go away, I thought of all of that. And then he rang me back later and offered me this very nebulous thing about being part of the talks. It was going on. It was going on, and other people were testifying.
And was that call threatening in its tone?
No, it wasn't threatening in its tone at all. If it had been threatening, I'd have put the phone down. No, it was from somebody I knew, but it was a high pressure call, and the answer was no. The answer was just simply no.
Which is the measure of your principles as a person and a politician, Anne, and more power to you. That's the Anne Widdecombe that I know and that my viewers and listeners know. Now, you used to be a big C Conservative, of course, a former top government minister in the Home Office, a long-standing Conservative MP and a legend of the party. I guess you could be described as a small C Conservative now because you've left the Tories and you support Reform UK. Do you not fear that if many people vote for Reform UK, that guarantees victory for Keir Starmer in a year's time?
Well, that was exactly what they said to us before, that if we voted for the Brexit party, we would put Jeremy Corbyn in office. So we stood down against all the Conservative candidates and only fought Labour candidates. And so we did that. And what did we get? Did we get the Brexit that we were promised? We did not. Did we get any recognition for what we had done? Any thanks from Boris for what we had done? We did not. But crucially, Brexit, Northern Ireland, was betrayed. Now, they can't pull it a second time. They can't do it a second time and say, oh, you must stand down because you might put Starmer in. Because we would say we've heard it all before. And I would say this, vote Tory, get pink. There is no blue party.
And are you suggesting, therefore, that 5 years of Labour is a price worth paying for the right of politics in this country to reform and reinvent itself?
Well, all I know is there are no Tories. So, when people say to me, look, the Tories will lose, I look round and I say, well, where are these Tories? There are no Tories. We haven't got a Tory government. We've got record high tax. This is a Conservative government, record immigration. This is a Conservative government. The NHS is in tatters. This is a Conservative government. We haven't actually got any Conservatives to vote for. Well, there are individual Conservatives, but we haven't got a Conservative party to vote for. And this time, I am very clear that we have to send not a warning shot across their bows, which is what we did with the Brexit at European elections. We have to actually fire a big hole in the ship so that they start taking some notice.
And everyone takes notice of you. It's always a highlight to have you on the programme on a Sunday night as our newsmaker. Former government minister and television personality Anne Widdecombe, supporter of Reform UK, returns in a week's time. But coming up, tomorrow's newspaper front pages and live reaction in the studio from my top pundits. Plus, in another Mark Dolan Tonight poll, we've been asking, as a GB News civil war breaks out between Lee Anderson and Richard Tice, is a vote for reform a vote for Keir Starmer? The results are in. I shall reveal all next. Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Country Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 till 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Great to have your company. So a bit of housekeeping. Loving being with you tonight, of course, on the radio and on TV. So it's a brand new show on Friday nights. That's right. I will be 8 till 9 on Friday nights. Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 every Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11 for Mark Dolan tonight, as always. If you're enjoying the show and if you're enjoying the channel, tell your friends, tell your family, and let's change the world together. Now, earlier we asked you, as a GB News civil war breaks out between Lee Anderson and Richard Tice, is a vote for reform a vote for Keir Starmer? And 32.6% say yes, whilst a majority, 67.4%, say no. I'll get the views of my top pundits on that in just a moment. Plus, more reaction to the fallout from Nigel in the jungle. Nigel's lawyers have written a furious letter to ITV about Bumgate. More on that shortly, but first, tomorrow's front pages. Thank you, Josh. We start with the Daily Mail. And we have no war cries, no angry chants, just solidarity with the UK's fearful Jews. As 100,000 march against anti-Semitism, the release of a 4-year-old hostage orphaned by Hamas reminds the world of their barbarism. Guardian hopes Israel and Hamas truce can hold as third exchange takes place. NHS delays blamed for 11 to 112 deaths, data reveals. Tragic. And Gaza hostages. Freed siblings told of their parents' fate. And dear old Terry Venables passes away at the age of 80. Legendary football manager, of course, Tottenham, Crystal Palace and England. The I newspaper now, millions face higher taxes until the election. And tens of thousands join protest march against anti-Semitism. The Sun, Terry Venables, 1943 to 2023. One tell of a fella. Gaza's tribute to football legend. Of course, Terry Venables was the England manager, Spurs, Crystal Palace, a couple of other clubs as well. And he managed very successfully in Barcelona, which is why he got the nickname El Tel. Daily Mirror, Terry Venables, the great showman, charismatic football star, passionate England boss, author, singer and hotel and club owner. Metro, farewell El Tel. And the Daily Star, 3 lines, legend dies. Farewell to El Tel is their headline too. Football Tonight paid tribute to Terry Venables, who led England to the 1996 Euros semi-finals. Gareth Southgate, consoled by Terry after a penalty miss, said a brilliant man who made people feel special. Indeed, he did. Well, he's up there in heaven now, organising his first 11. Probably with Diego Maradona and a few others. Brilliant stuff. Let's get reaction now from my top pundits to all of tomorrow's front pages. Plus, we're going to get more on what's happened in the jungle tonight with Nigel and the gang. With me, though, this evening, my gang, my campmates, who are very well-behaved and quite clean. Broadcaster and comedian Sajila Kershi, trade unionist Andy MacDonald, who'll put anything in his mouth, and former Conservative MP and farmer Neil Parish. He's not squeamish. He's had his hands on udders all afternoon, haven't you?
Probably, yes.
Listen, folks, lots of stories to get through. And can we talk about this march in central London? Sajila, no war cries, no angry chants, just solidarity with UK's fearful Jews. Luckily, this is 100,000 people. It seemed to have gone without incident.
That's a good thing. Yeah, that's it.
Is that in contrast to the pro-Palestinian marches we've seen in recent weeks?
I knew you were going to do that.
You were waiting for that.
I was waiting for the little trap there. No, I think it's great. I mean, I don't think there should be any... you know where I stand on this. Anti-Semitism is wrong. Islamophobia is wrong. And every single march, and I have been protesting my entire life for different things, you know, there's always been an element of like, you know, a few wrong-uns that will get in there. And I think even not once the march is over, so the people that aren't responsible, they would... I know you're trying to get me to compare.
But wasn't it more than
a few wrong-uns? It's not a comparison.
Wasn't it more than a few wrong-uns at the pro-Palestinian
I don't know. I wasn't on there. But you know what? If I was there in solidarity... Sorry, Mike. I was there in solidarity. And I hear... I was asking all the people that went, and a lot of people did go. I don't think it's two different things. There has been anti-Semitism, has been on the rise, and it's right that people came out and supported, and it's great that it wasn't just Jewish people, others came out as well. But in the same sense, the pro-Palestine Jewish people came out with that as well, to say that it was wrong what was happening with Israel. So it's not like which march wore it best, you know.
No, well, I've said...
two different things.
I totally agree. I've said taking sides in the Middle East is a fool's errand. And it most certainly is. But Andy, you wanted to interject.
Yeah, I mean, it says, you know, no war cries, no angry chants. You know, the EDL were there. Tommy Robinson was there. You know, he's a racist criminal, a convicted fraudster. He beats up policemen. You know, he hates Muslims.
That's him off your Christmas card list.
Well, Tommy Robinson, he was there and he got arrested.
He's got positive side as well.
Does he?
His mother loves him.
I don't think... well, if I was his mother, I wouldn't love him. He's a racist criminal. And he was there. He got arrested. Anywhere he goes, he thrives on violence, he thrives on conflict. And, you know, I think it's a real shame, particularly in the media, looking on Twitter, particularly today. It did overshadow what should have been a really positive march. You know, the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, a really good organisation. They organised this, and generally it went without hitch. But he came, and I don't know why he throws his weight behind these things, you know.
Although we did have some of those...
We did have before.
We did have some of those characters during Remembrance Sunday and Armistice Day as well. They were quickly apprehended by police. But do you think there's a contrast between the conduct of those on the pro-Palestinian marches versus what we saw in London today?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, you know, there are idiots on every side. You know, when you've got a march of, I think it was 300,000, the Palestinian march, if you've got 100 idiots, that's not bad going. But you've still got 100 idiots.
I don't know about this, though, because I wonder if there are Jewish viewers and listeners watching and listening to this show, Neil, who will feel that there were a large number of anti-Semitic tropes, chants and slogans brandished over several weekends since October the 7th, the equivalent of which we didn't see yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I think, one, I welcomed the march yesterday because I think the Jewish community must be, you know, feeling a little bit more secure because of it. I think the trouble was there were some really nasty slogans in the previous marches, especially when, you know,
and this wasn't...
we were going to drive Israel into the sea.
Could you call that a fringe? Would you call that a fringe minority, though, on those marches? I'm not sure that's the case.
I mean, I don't think it was the majority, but there were certainly a number there that actually believe that, and I think that is the problem. But as you quite rightly say, the Middle East, I mean, the problem is that Israel had to act against Hamas when they slaughtered their innocent people. But, of course, the scale of the onslaught into Gaza is actually going to, you know, is turning many people, unfortunately, against Israel. And so, therefore, you know, it is a balance to be had. But I think marches in this country, I think what worries me in this country is that all communities must feel safe, both the Jewish community and everyone. And so that's why I think, I welcome this march. I think until the situation, settles down, until a permanent ceasefire is achieved in Gaza, we are going to get marches every week.
Andy,
I think passions run high.
Well, I do think you're right, and we can all pray for a peaceful resolution to that conflict. Sorry to interrupt you, Neil, but let me get now to The Guardian, Andy. NHS delays blamed for 112 deaths, data reveals. Well, I would fear that's the tip of the iceberg. Do you think our NHS is still fit for purpose, and how would Labour fix it?
I think in principle, yeah, it's fit for purpose. It's lasted, 60, 70 years now. It's had its 70th birthday a couple of months ago, but it's really struggled. I think COVID really took its toll. And I think, look at those net migration figures as well. It's exceeded its capacity. It's dealing with even more people. There are lots of British people, there are a lot of non-British people who are here legally, who rely on the NHS. They pay their taxes, they pay their bit towards it, but there have been consistent failures from this Conservative government. I was looking at, I think it was Richard Bacon's, he tweeted today a fantastic graphic of when the Tories were last in power before Blair, the waiting times went up. Then during Blair and Brown, they went down. And over the last 13 years, they've gone up. Even over, looking pre-COVID, they were growing exponentially. It's been a constant mismanagement and lack of understanding of what the NHS is. The Tories, they've just been looking after their mates' pockets. That's all they've been doing.
Neil, do you accept that?
No, I don't. I think the problem with the NHS is the 52% that's spent on administration. And therefore we've got great doctors, great nurses, but we are spending too much on the bureaucracy. And yes, that's partly the fault of the Conservative government, I'll accept that, but it's the fault of all political parties because we don't actually get to grips with the real problem. And I think there will have to be absolutely fundamental reform. But of course, every time we try and reform the health service, it largely goes wrong. And I think that's the issue. And I think we've got to make sure that the chalk face, the operations, all of that is delivered. We don't need the amount of bureaucracy. I'm having my hit done, hopefully, through the NHS soon. But, the amount of bureaucracy I had to go through there to get onto the list. Once you get onto the list, then it starts to work, and all of a sudden the whole thing clicks, and it's very good. And when you actually go to the hospital and see the surgeon, it works very well. But it's that process and everything you have to go through, a huge process to get there. And somehow or other, that's got to be cut out. I don't think, in fairness to Labour, they can chuck as much money as they like at it. But how? Because the country's over-borrowed at the moment.
Well, the Conservatives have paid more into the NHS than ever before.
Exactly. I'm glad you recognise that. But it hasn't been as effective as it should be. And I think it'll be interesting to see whether Labour... And I think this is where actually that I'd like to see Keir Starmer, if he wants to win the next general election, actually come out and say exactly what he's going to do with the health service and exactly how he would change it. Because I think one of the issues we were talking about earlier is the political parties all look the same, and while they might vote Labour, they won't vote Labour with any great heart because they're not sure whether those changes are going to come. And I think Keir Starmer's got to be a lot braver. The Labour Party's got to be a lot braver at the moment. All it is at the moment is anti-Tory. Let's be careful because we might frighten the voters. Let's actually see what the colour of their money is and what difference they would really make.
Sajila, the NHS, is it about money or is it about how it's run?
I think it's a little bit of both. I kind of agree with both my learned colleagues here.
I'm glad we're learned. Thank you.
Can I just say
unlearned.
Can I just say that agreement as well as nudity is not in your contract?
Because I think if all the parties are going to look the same, might as well be united on that. But yeah, there is a problem with the NHS, and like you, I kind of rely on it quite a lot for things. The bureaucracy is an issue.
Plastic surgery, of course.
Plastic surgery, of course.
Money well spent, can I just say?
Yes. Well, this nose,
That's very rude.
Nobody wants a perfect nose. They want a nose like this. But the thing is, it's the bureaucracy. And you ask the doctors and nurses, and they think we're bogged down with paperwork. We're constantly having to do this rather than looking after patients. Nurses want to be looking after patients. So you've got all this, and there needs to be money, but you can't just throw money at willy-nilly. It's got to be utilised in and I don't think there has been a proper structure for many years. Not any parties sorted that out. So yeah, if both of them, like Labour and the Tories, could get together actually do something substantive. That would be winning votes.
But could we hold fire on the money side? Because you said it's possibly how it's run and money. I'm not sure it is money, because I think it's a money pit. I'd like the NHS to spend less money and actually be a leaner, more efficient organisation. Because at the moment it's £160 billion a year and growing, and we seem to be getting sicker, not more healthy.
Yeah, but where's the money going then? So, I mean...
Well, it seems to be going on a lot of middle management. As Neil said, that damning figure of over 50% of the budget is not on frontline care. It's not doctors, not nurses.
It's not frontline, because the frontline are saying that they're not getting it. That's why they're going on strike. So, you know, the frontline...
Last word briefly, Neil.
Well, I mean, because the trouble is the decisions on how the service is run is done by the administration. And, of course, the administration just builds itself up into a bigger bureaucracy. So until we actually cut that out and somebody's brave enough to do it, and bringing the parties together would be great, but, of course, it will always be a political football.
OK, well, look, speaking of political football, I've got more developments in the jungle. Not only have Nigel Farage's lawyers sent a furious message to ITV about his bum being exposed on national TV, which I'm calling Bumgate. It's worse than Watergate, let me tell you, because, you know, I'll never unsee that image. But another development, and that's Fred Siriex, who's Nigel's campmate in the jungle, and Nigel have had another furious row about Brexit. That's right, it's Brexit, the argument number 2. We've got the exclusive video, and that's next.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GBNews.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, more front pages in, courtesy of Lottie. And let me say we've got the Daily Express now. El Tel dies at 80, legendary football manager who made English football smile again. He most certainly did. Brace yourselves, Arctic blast on the way. There could be ice on the roads and even snow. I'm a bit worried about Neil's Brussels sprouts. They could get very hard.
They could get very frozen.
Most definitely. Also,
they're better. They're tastier when they've had a bit of frost.
For the avoidance of doubt, my lovely colleague Neil is a top farmer as well as former Tory MP. Royal story here. Harry must hit out at cruel attacks on the royals. This according to a brand new book from Omid Scobie, who is pretty close, we're told, to the Sussexes, and his book is out this week. It's all about the royal family. Another bombshell. Speaking of bombshells, more action in the jungle tonight. And Nigel Farage and Fred Sirieix, his campmate, have clashed yet again over Brexit. It's round 2. Here's what happened on tonight's I'm a Celebrity.
What's the 3 benefits of Brexit?
Self-government.
Which we already had.
We did not have.
OK.
Fred, there's no point. If you believe that, you don't understand what the European Union is.
So what's the second benefit?
Well, hopefully take back our territorial waters.
But when I'm talking about benefits, I'm talking about something tangible.
All right, the nuclear submarine deal with Australia could not have been done as an European Union member because France already had a contract. Simple as.
But we could have done it with France.
Don't make me laugh.
In fact, the French were really pissed off about that.
Of course they were. Good. A lot of people in life are persuadable. Fred Sirieix is not one of them. But the point about it is we can make a mess of it ourselves if we choose to. And
that's what we are doing.
And I've always argued that.
Well, Neil, Brexit is a debate that raged across the country and it raged within the Conservative Party. Do you think that Nigel has represented the cause well there?
I think Nigel always fights a good corner for Brexit. I mean, naturally, I was actually on the other side during the referendum. I actually campaigned and voted Remain. And I think, you know, it's the party can live with both sides and move on now that we've got Brexit. I mean, I think what most of us actually want is to make sure that Brexit actually builds up trade and we can retain as much Europe trade as we can and then have much more across the world. So, I mean, I think, you know, Nigel will stick to his guns in the jungle. I mean, are you going to discuss the fact of Nigel's backside going across the world? Because I would say to him there, you sign up to go into the jungle, you must put up with what happens. And I think you'll find there's very few waivers on that show. That's the whole idea of going into the jungle. So he's a big boy, he can deal with Brexit and he can deal with that. I'll be quite blunt about it.
Well, Andy, listen, I know, and you're rightly concerned that on this channel and perhaps elsewhere, there's a focus on some of these lighter stories like Nigel Farage's bum. And you said during the break there are people struggling with the cost of living, freezing in their homes tonight as we speak. However, I thought what's interesting about this new series of I'm a Celebrity is that some of the conversations that we need to have as a nation have been happening in the jungle. So you had Nella Rose and Nigel discussing immigration, and now they're debating the benefits of otherwise of Brexit. Is that positive for shows like I'm a Celebrity to platform the national debate?
I'm sure all 200 of their viewers are loving it. You know, it's a shrinking show. It's past its time, realistically. And even the conversations that they're having, you know, you saw that with Fred Sirieix, you know, it wasn't a very, as you would say, he wouldn't be a learned colleague. He didn't put it across very well. You know, the argument was it's like having an argument in a skill. It's just like, it's so childish.
Who Fred Sirieix?
Both of them, you know, the back and forth on, oh, well, if you think that, then you're not serious. Like, it's not a serious conversation.
But he asked Nigel for 3 benefits of Brexit, and Nigel
only gave him 2, in fairness.
He gave 3, didn't he?
Well, no, he gave the French submarine, taking back the self-governance, and there was something about territories that was dismissed. But it's just petty. That's not actually what Brexit was about. And, you know, I know that Nigel wasn't on the main Brexit campaign. I know he had his own little fringe thing going on. But, you know, those that were actually following the real Brexit campaign, it was about taking back the industrial heartlands, taking back industrial opportunities, giving freedom and, you know, money to the Midlands and the North. That was what won the referendum, not we'll get a nuclear submarine deal with Australia.
Because I think, did you support Brexit?
I did, yeah.
And so do you feel that it hasn't been properly delivered?
No, it hasn't at all. You know, you look at all the industrial opportunities that have just been lost.
Could it be delivered still?
I think so, yeah. You know, we're looking at the R&D into green industries. That could definitely be focused in those heartlands that were promised a deal, but, you know, it probably won't. The Westminster lot will...
Briefly... Could I be blunt and ask you a question?
Yeah,
you know, I mean, the Tories haven't delivered Brexit well, but do you actually believe that the Labour Party would?
Yeah, I think they will. I think they've got a better chance.
Don't half of them want to go back into the EU?
I just don't think their heart's in it.
Half of them, Neil, want to go back into the customs union or single market.
Who's the Foreign Secretary at the moment?
Yeah.
Lord David Cameron.
And just remind me, what did he do in the Brexit referendum?
Yeah,
well, he run the entire Remain campaign.
For Remain, of course.
Did he not run the entire Remain campaign? You know, I think if you're going to throw that stone, it's impossible when the Conservatives have got David Cameron.
I still think that three parts of the Labour Party would have us back into the European Union tomorrow.
Wasn't it? He's been in the job a week and he's already said we need closer ties with Europe.
Yeah. Can I just go back to the jungle, right?
Go on, quick word in the jungle, because I've got your heroes and villains as well.
I'm just still a bit traumatised from Bumgate. And
Nigel's bum exposed to millions of viewers.
I think that was a publicity stunt. I think it was a publicity stunt.
Go on.
I think it was a publicity stunt. I think that probably got more viewers than them talking about Brexit.
So you think Nigel was planning it all along?
I think it was a plan.
There you go. Well, listen, can I ask you now for your... I'm going to ask for a name and a sentence, please, for your headline heroes.
OK, it's going to be Annabel Giles. She sadly passed away.
Great TV presenter.
Yeah, great TV presenter. She was a supermodel back in the day. She was at the very first Comic Relief. Passed away this week from an aggressive brain tumour. Absolutely fabulous lady. She came into
wonderful lady, wonderful lady. Annabel Giles, may God bless her and her family. Only a few seconds, I'm afraid, for your headline heroes.
Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, he got fired last week, came back, trolled the entirety of Twitter and the entirety of the Silicon Valley, and now he's back as chief exec. What a guy!
What a guy! Neil, briefly,
please.
For
me, Yafa Adar, she was a Jewish lady, 85 years old, released by Hamas. You know, thought she was going out to be shot, and actually is back with her family.
Great nomination. Only a name, please, if you can.
I thought it was the wrong. It's a wrong Andy McDonald. I thought it was a politician. I thought it was wrong that he was suspended. He was just asking for peace.
There you go. Andy McDonald, the other one.
Tommy Robinson, the racist thug.
OK, and Neil.
Putin, for just his continuous war on a free country like Ukraine, and he just carries on and carries on.
OK, well, listen, Tommy Robinson not here to defend himself, but, of course, Neil entitled to his view. Tommy might deny some of those allegations. My thanks to Lottie and Greg and Josh and Maria earlier in the weekend as well. It's been a really busy few days. Headliners is next. I'll see you Friday at 8.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News forecast. There's further rain as we move through the next 24 hours, but it does slip away. It turns brighter but also colder at the same time. Low pressure bringing that rain at the moment, but it does start to move away as we head through the end of Monday, allowing higher pressure to build in, and it turns a little drier, but also colder too. Through this evening and overnight, a lot of cloud around, outbreaks of rain keeping the frost at bay. We could see a little bit of frost through the glens of Scotland, but also some wintry showers moving in, leading to some icy stretches here. Generally, with the cloud and rain, temperatures holding up, a milder night, 7 to 8 degrees for quite a bit of the country. But it does mean a cloudy, damp, dull start to the day, outbreaks of rain, which should be heavy at times. But it does slowly push southeastwards through the morning into the afternoon, allowing the skies to brighten. Sunny spells, Northern Ireland, Western Scotland. Later, western fringes of England and Wales, staying quite cloudy and showery in the east. Cool here, temperatures 6 or 7 degrees, an early max in the south around 10 or 11 before the colder air arrives here. On Tuesday, a cold start to the day, some mist and fog patches, wintry showers, icy stretches across the far north. And then for most, it will be dry, plenty of sunny spells through the day, just some showers across the northern half of the UK. And it stays cold.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's
my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.